1. In my previous job, I reported directly into one of the company's directors, who generally trusted me to get on with the job and manage myself. This included setting my own work hours, which varied week to week due to company needs, and also my own. Anyway, me, got a new manager, NM, that was in between me and the director and now former manager, FM, I reported to. They were the sort of person that felt they needed to micromanage and be in control of everything, despite having little to no understanding of what I do, and why my hours need to be flexible. Now, NM was purely office-based, so setting regular hours that they worked each week was easy. As such, they expected the same of me, and know exactly the hours I'd be working each and every day. Okay, seems reasonable. I'll let you know at the end of each week what hours I'll be working the next week. Not good enough. You should work the same hours each week to make it simpler. I voiced my concerns, and that I change my hours based on the needs of the business. Well, that can be discussed on a case-by-case basis. Alright, we'll see how that goes. A few weeks later. NM, I will be leaving early next Friday, as I'm going to my parents' house for the weekend to celebrate my father's birthday. I've already arranged cover and you don't need to worry about anything. Unacceptable. That's inside your scheduled work hours. That's unreasonable. It is no inconvenience to you and I'm giving you plenty of notice. If you want to leave early, you'll have to book the entire day off as holiday. Now, I don't want to use an entire day's holiday when I only need to finish a couple of hours early. And I see the case-by-case basis we talked about was only ever to benefit the company. But I also see the opportunity for some malicious compliance. One of many I had with NM. Okay, fair enough. But I think we need a written agreement of these work hours so we have something to reference in situations like this. Absolutely, seems like a great idea. A few weeks later, NM emails me. Hey, Philippy Flop. Now, I know you don't work Thursdays, but there is an important meeting I need you to attend. You can take this as time in lieu at a later date. Just get my approval first. Sorry, NM, no can do. That's not inside my scheduled work hours we agreed upon. Please see your prior email. This isn't negotiable. You must attend. If you refuse, I will have to inform FM that you refuse, and I will have to start disciplinary action. I'm sorry, it's not within my scheduled work hours, and I have plans. I don't. If you need to inform FM, then unfortunately you will have to do so. Anyway, having worked under FM for a couple of years, I know exactly what's going to happen next. FM gives me a call, asks why I'm refusing. I explain the situation and he says he will talk to NM. FM obviously gives NM a bit of a bollocking, and the next day NM pulls me to the side and says they're happy to go back to the previous arrangement I had with FM, provided I attend the meeting. Not a problem. On that note, I'll be leaving early Friday. I walked away. NM looked furious, but knew they couldn't do anything about it. I had nowhere to be, just wanted to make a point. 2. As a property manager, I do my best to keep things professional but friendly with my tenants. To this end, I'm willing to overlook the occasional minor lease violation because my primary goal as a landlord is to keep the units rented to the best tenants for the longest amount of time. If this means ignoring a late fee because the tenant was a few days late with the rent, or paying half a month's water bill because the tenant forgot to get the utilities transferred after moving in, so be it. One of our buildings was custom built for college students. It was originally supposed to be a large building with 10 separate units, but due to the university sabotaging our efforts at getting a zoning exemption, we found out later they were planning on building their own off-campus housing and didn't want the competition. We were forced to construct a duplex with 5 bedrooms per side. Additionally, to remain in compliance with city regulations, each side has to be rented to 5 students as a single family. Family is not defined by blood or other familial relationship, so 5 total strangers can still legally be considered a family. This means 5 students have to come together as a group to sign a lease for each side of the duplex. This is a huge pain in the ass for everyone concerned, but so far it has worked out because compared to what the university charges for housing both on and off campus, our tenants are more than willing to put up with the inconvenience if it means saving literally several $100s per month each. tenants are asked to designate one member of their group to collect everyone's individual share of the rent in order to submit a single rent check each month. We do this for several reasons. One is evidence to the city that we are not renting the unit to 10 separate people, but rather to 2 single families. 2, to avoid any problems with one tenant claiming he paid his share already, or otherwise has some special arrangement with any of the others, as to show his share is paid. And 3, to avoid the hassle of having to run down 10 separate rent checks each month. Recently, one group of students was extremely obnoxious about this. After 2 months of sorting through 5 separate check and cash payments, several of which arrived after the due date, I sent them a friendly email reminder that the rent was supposed to be paid in a single check. A few days later, they replied with a very snotty phone call saying the lease didn't specify the rent had to be paid with a single check. While true, the one-check rule had been more or less a gentleman's agreement, honored by literally every single group of tenants for the past 15 years. These tenants, however, demanded to go by the letter of the lease, paying with 5 separate checks because nothing on the lease said they couldn't. So, for the remainder of their time renting from us, each tenant paid their rent separately, with at least 1 or 2 paying after the due date every single month. Lesson learned. I changed the default lease for future tenants, making it a requirement for rent to be paid in a single payment, or else there would be a financial penalty. Meanwhile, I had to wait for these assholes to leave before it became my turn for malicious compliance. Prior to move-in, these tenants asked that all the walls be freshly painted, and for much of the carpet to be replaced. The walls didn't really need more than cleaning. The paint we use makes the walls easy to clean, with only the occasional touch-up needed. And the carpet, while admittedly stained in some areas, still had several years of life left in it. Remember, this is a short-term rental unit for college students who want to save money living off campus, not a luxury condominium for executives. It is expected to sacrifice some quality for affordability. But the owner acquiesced and had the unit fully painted and replaced much of the carpet. Ordinarily, we overlook many things other landlords would not forgive. If we don't have to repaint the unit or fix any holes or hundreds of dollars in cleaning, we chalk most of the damage up as normal wear and tear, and refund the full security deposit. Even if we do have to paint, if enough time has elapsed since the last time the unit was painted, even if there is a lot of dirt or stains on the wall, we won't charge the tenants for the fix. Well, because these tenants demanded that most of the walls be freshly painted and for the carpet to be replaced prior to their move-in, we had photographic evidence that they treated the unit poorly, allowing us to deduct appropriate cleaning and repair costs for all the stains and nail holes they left in the walls and all the dirt and minor stains in the carpet, per the letter of the lease. Our lease also contains a term that says, in essence, just because we don't enforce a particular section of the lease doesn't mean that we give up our right to do so. If, for example, a tenant moves in a roommate or a pet without prior authorization, and we don't immediately demand the person or animal leave, doesn't mean we've accepted them living in the unit. We still reserve the right to evict them later if it becomes a problem. And if we don't happen to charge a late fee the month that it was late, doesn't mean we waive the right to charge that fee later. So I went back through the entire payment history for this group of tenants, and made a note of every occasion any portion of the rent was paid late, and assessed a late fee, as per the letter of the lease. Some months even had multiple assessments because our lease allows for additional penalties, including interest fees if rent isn't paid after 7 days. The late fees and interest alone cancelled out almost a third of their deposit refund. Finally, even though the lease and state law gives us up to 45 days after move-out to issue the deposit refund, if the tenants were good to us, I will do all I can to get it out within a couple of days of getting the keys back. This can make things a lot easier for students in particular because many are still in the area after graduation and can easily meet up to divvy up the funds. With these tenants, I made certain to abide by the letter of the lease and not send the check out until the 45th day after move-out, by which time most of them would be scattered across the country from each other. The vast majority of my tenants are pleasant to deal with, and it is a point of pride when I get to issue a full deposit refund after move-out. But if you're going to be an asshole... 3. Backstory. I was friends with a girl a couple of years older than me during high school. We both graduate and continue the friendship from different states while in college. We always got along extremely well and had all the same interests: illustration, film photography, music taste, yoga. This will be important later. I even went through a major life event that she supported me through long distance. Then suddenly a few weeks go by without her replying to my texts or calls. I figure she's busy and also in her last semester of school, so it's whatever. Those few weeks turned into months, and I realized one day that she's blocked me on social media. Well, that's weird and kinda sad. But I don't know what's going on in her life, so I don't hold it against her. Months go by, and pretty soon it's been 3 years since we last communicated. This entire time, I had her copy of her favorite book that she lent me, and seeing as it seemed like this friendship had mysteriously been snuffed out, I decided to mail it to her. I didn't know her college address, so I just mailed it to her mom's house with a note that essentially said, "Here's your book. Sorry I held onto it for so long, also I don't know what's up, and I hope you're doing well. I'm here if you ever need anything," and mailed it off. The very next fucking day, before she even knew I had mailed the book back, I get a random Facebook message from her where she comes clean about why she cut me off. She completely chews me out, saying I exploited her interests, the very same mutual interests that made us friends in the first place, because we both practiced yoga during our friendship, but she became certified and began working in a studio, while I maintained my own personal home practice. And because we both studied fine arts in college, anyone who's pursued a fine arts degree knows just how broad that is. She accused me of trying to steal her life, and came up with a list of ways I had angered her over the past few years. Keep in mind, I had zero insight into her life during that time because I was blocked, and we maintained no mutual friends. The list was curated by her and her sister, who had remained my friend on social media throughout this entire time. She also insisted I was stalking her because I texted her on her birthday, Christmas, and the occasional "hope you're doing okay" in those 3 years. Long story long, she brings up these radical and false notions about me that she never chose to bring up with me directly, and ends it with the kicker: "I figured you deserved to know what you did, but I don't want a response from you." Obviously, I'm not about to let someone come out here and accuse me of shit I didn't do and then not defend myself. So I message her back with a big, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Why wouldn't you share these concerns with me before cutting me off 3 years ago?" She blocks me again immediately, tells anyone from high school that'll listen that I'm a stalker and that I'm obsessed with her. I move on with my life and never talk to her again because why the fuck would I? Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. Another 3 years later, I'm happily running a jewelry business through Etsy. One day an order comes in for one of my most recent pieces. I check the buyer's information and it's her husband. He has no fucking clue that this business is owned and operated by me, and also insists on expedited shipping. I check the date and realize that her birthday is in a few days. He unknowingly purchased my art as a birthday gift for her. I laugh and think to myself, "You like my art? You want to pay me extra to get it there on time so you can give it to your wretched wife?" Okay. I packaged it up with my standard hand-painted thank you note. Nothing out of the ordinary for me or my business. I also sign the thank you note with my name, which is also my standard practice, and ship it off. Her birthday comes, and the night of her birthday I get a message on Etsy from him, firmly and awkwardly demanding a refund. I politely provide him with my return policy and suggest that I'll gladly refund the cost of the item once the product has been shipped back to me. A week later, the necklace returns in the mail with the thank you note crumpled up. I still smile to this day when I imagine on her birthday opening a beautiful necklace gifted from her husband, realizing who made it, and probably spitting fire before crumpling up the thank you note adorned with my artwork. With how irrational she is, it probably ruined her entire birthday. Bonus for me, the returned necklace immediately sold to another buyer, who it complemented perfectly. 4. So this one happened last spring. It was a dark and rainy early spring day. I was working for a trucking company that shall remain nameless, but we did local deliveries and were a union shop. I came into work for my normal shift. It was a Wednesday, I believe. Hanging on the time clock is a sign in naturally broken English. All driver must pre-tip. This mandatory. All trucks must inspect beginning of shift. Failure to do so result in fines from police. Company will not pay you back. As I make my way from the time clock through the warehouse to the locker room, I learn from my union brothers and sisters that a driver had gotten pulled over that morning for a random inspection by the commercial vehicle inspectors in my fine city. I, of course, let out a hearty chuckle as soon as I heard this tidbit, because I'm well aware of the jalopies we are operating out there. There are kickbacks going from the contract mechanics back to the managers in order to preserve this fragile relationship. And said mechanics also siphon off the company fuel from our trucks each time about once a month they go to the shop. The trucks are held together with paper clips, JB Weld, and some thrift store shoes. I approach my manager, who, very sadly for him, is almost always in his office when I start my shift. I've had my fair share of headbutts with this guy for the duration of the 18 months that I've worked there. It just so happens that before this local driving job, I was a long-haul trucker for 3 years. I've been inspected in multiple states including Texas, California, and Idaho, and Illinois. I ask him if he's aware of the condition of the trucks we are operating, and that only 1 or 2 out of the 10 would actually pass an inspection from real DOT guys. He asks me what I mean. I mention how I've brought up the condition of the trucks to him before, and that basically nothing gets fixed unless the truck is literally being towed back to the shop. Just do the pre-trip and report any issues to him. Fine, out I go. I start with the one I use if it's available. 20581. Of course, I know that it doesn't pass. The parking brake does not stop the wheels from rolling, and the truck can only be parked on completely level ground. Let's not bring up the absolute tragedy that could happen if someone who's not aware of this parks on an incline somewhere pedestrian heavy. Of course, it doesn't stop there. The oil is low and a turn signal lamp is out. The steering tires are basically bald too. Each item gets a check mark for major defect and a mark of unsatisfactory from the driver, your correspondent. I bring this back in, place it into the paperwork basket, and resume my quest for a safe truck. 19245. This one is far worse. The hydraulics on the liftgate do not keep their pressure. A headlight is out. And the engine oil is low. It doesn't have reflective triangles nor a fire extinguisher. We will leave alone the OSHA issue of roll-up doors that easily require 120 pounds of lifting force to open, because that safety issue is not within the scope of DOT inspections. In any case, trucks without emergency equipment are grounded. Inspection report number 2 goes back into the basket without a word from me. I resume my quest once again. Now, 19405. It's actually pretty good. Mechanically, it is in all kinds of disrepair. It wheezes and shakes while it moves. But according to the item's inspection report, it is passable, except for one thing. The windshield wipers do not work. Remember when I said it was raining? So this inspection trip is short because all I had to do was turn the key and test the wipers to know it wouldn't pass. I go right back in and see my lead hand standing by the paperwork basket, holding 2 reports in his hand.
You just gonna keep failing trucks until you run out?
No, I'm going to inspect trucks until I find one that passes, and then use that one.
You know all of our trucks are going to fail. They're terrible. Just go get one and load your stuff up.
I can't do that. As a driver, when I sign these forms, I'm signing that it's safe to drive, and I'm liable if something goes wrong. And now the company is telling me I'm going to pay their fines too. Now, boss man comes out of his office and asks why I don't have my stuff loaded up yet. It's a good 45 minutes into my shift at this point, and the real work hasn't even begun. I tell him the trucks don't pass inspection. Lead hand, who is always boss man's attack dog, starts yelling in my face for me to go pull the truck into the dock. This has attracted an audience at this point, and I tell him I'm not going to do that. Okay, I yelled back, I'm not innocent. We have a history, this attack dog and me. We both work hard, but he bleeds company blood and I only bleed green. We're yelling at each other, and it becomes apparent that he wants to physically intimidate me into doing his will. The manager pulls him away, sends him into the locker room, and then proceeds to yell in my face himself. I get sent home, less than an hour into my shift, albeit not on a busy day when they couldn't do without me. Of course, in my personal vehicle on my way home, I place a call to our union steward about the situation. Upon arrival home, I email him the details of the situation and I go to a movie with my girl. The next day, I am informed I will be paid for the full shift of work that day, and that should it be required, the lead hand will fill out the pre-trip inspection form for the truck I need to operate. 5. I worked for a grocery giant from 2007 to 2013 as a clerk. One busy evening in 2009, I had a soccer mom come through my register trying to return 2 gallons of milk. She was a typical soccer mom with a bob haircut and looked like the "I want to talk to your manager" meme. There were 6 gallons in total in her cart. 2 she was returning, 4 she was going to purchase. The chain had a policy that dairy items could be refunded 3 days from purchase if the customer had a receipt. I had already noticed that the gallons had expired the previous day. At this point I assumed that soccer mom accidentally picked up short-coated milk. It wouldn't be crazy if this happened because our dairy guy sucked at rotation. "I'd be glad to refund this for you. I just need a receipt to be able to give you your money back." "Are you serious? Do you think I stole this milk or something?" "Not at all. We have a policy on dairy returns and all returns in general." I tell her said policies. "This is ridiculous. I'm busy, and I just need my money back so I can get home to my kids." "I'm sorry this is taking so long, but if you give me the receipt I can get you at the door quicker." At this point I suspect she's trying to pull something. "Fine, here's the receipt, just give me my money back." Now I start reading the receipt. "Stop reading the receipt and hurry up and give me the refund so I can get going." I keep reading the receipt and notice the date on it is 10 days before the milk actually expired. So 11 days ago from this day. Nice try, lady. "I'm sorry, I can't accept this return." "Excuse me? I expect my money back. This is ridiculous that you won't refund me for this. Can you find someone who knows what they're doing? I'm tired of talking to a moron." "I can call my manager down to talk to you, if that's what you prefer."
"Great, do that. I'm sure he's much smarter than you."
I call my manager down. "I'm going to need you to step aside and wait at the front desk for the manager. He will meet you there. I now had a line 6 customers deep."
"No way, not happening. Your customers can wait like I'm doing. I want them to see how stupid you really are."
The customers in line started to groan, so I turned my register light off and had my bagger open up a new register just for them. At this point my manager shows up and gets the details of the situation. He backs me up on everything, which angers soccer mom even more. She starts screaming about how everyone who works at the store was incompetent and disgustingly rude, blah blah blah. She created quite the scene, so my manager decided to just refund her to shut her up and get her out of the store. He tells me to stay by him while he refunds her. Now this is where soccer mom's 4 other gallons of milk come into play and the malicious compliance. He refunds the 2 gallons and rings up the 4 new gallons of milk. We had a buy one get one coupon, unlimited use on milk, in the ad this particular week. The final total came out to $0. My manager looks pissed. Soccer mom pulled a quick one on us and now she's getting 4 free gallons of milk. I asked soccer mom if I can put the milk in her cart. Soccer mom said yes, but that I need to bag the milk first and can't believe I would just place the gallons in her cart without bagging them first. First of all, who the hell bags milk? They have handles on the damn gallons for the customers to carry. Whatever. Side note, my store saved money by purchasing really cheap plastic grocery bags. I tell soccer mom I will double bag each gallon for her. She tells me no, just 1 bag for each gallon because she doesn't want to waste plastic, and goes on about how the store hires dumb people who are killing the planet. Really? Putting a plastic gallon of milk with a handle in a plastic jug is a waste of plastic in the first place? I still keep my cool though, and tell soccer mom that double bagging would be better because the bag would rip if I didn't bag it that way. Soccer mom still says 1 bag for each gallon and to stop talking to her. My manager chipped in at this point and had this giant evil smile on his face and said to me, "It's okay, just bag it how she wants it bagged." I do just that. I catch on why he's smiling at this. Soccer mom finally leaves the store. As soccer mom walks out, my manager and I are looking out the window watching her. Soccer Mom puts her cart in the corral and grabbed each cheap, weak plastic bag by the handle to carry her milk to her car. We were confused that Soccer Mom didn't walk her cart to her car, but got excited that she didn't. Soccer Mom made it about 5 feet carrying the milk. Each gallon came shooting out of the bottom of these cheap plastic bags and exploded all over our parking lot. Milk everywhere. Soccer Mom looks back at the store and sees my manager and I laughing at her through the window and has this defeated look on her face. Soccer Mom didn't even bother to come back in for a legitimate refund. She got in her car and sped out of the lot. 6. Backstory. My future wife and I just finished a cruise from New York to Bermuda. After spending a couple of days in New York, we were on our way home to Vancouver. Our flight home had a stopover in Toronto, where we had 2 hours to get from one flight to the next. Just after we left New York, there is an announcement saying that there may be some headwinds en route, and that we are expected to arrive late. They have taken the liberty and bumped those going to Vancouver, apparently most of the plane, to another flight which left an hour later. They instructed us to go to the same boarding area on our original flight tickets, and their staff will be able to update our tickets and assign seating. So halfway into the flight, the pilot makes an announcement that we ended up with a tailwind, not a headwind, and we are ahead of schedule. Because we are ahead of schedule, we land and are unloaded and are shuttled to the main airport area. Don't know why we did not attach to the main part, maybe because we were early. After taking the shuttle to the main part of the airport, my future wife and I walk casually to the boarding area on our original ticket. When we get there, I find one staff who appears to be setting up, let's call him John. We do as we are instructed on the airplane and tell John that we are supposed to be on this flight, but it appears that because they, Air Canada, thought we were going to be late, we were bumped. We also mentioned that there was a lot of us on our flight in our situation that will be here soon. John was confused, and apparently this was news to him. He couldn't find us on our original flight, and he was unaware that they were supposed to assign us seats at this gate. He was nice and told us he would try and find out what was happening, and see if he could get us on our original flight. We were nice and polite back and told him it didn't matter to us that he didn't have to go out of his way to get us on if it was full. We were okay waiting since it was only an hour extra wait. He told us to just sit on the side a few feet from his deck, and he would let us know if he found out anything. We were waiting in the boarding area by ourselves for 5 minutes or so before the rest of our plane starts showing up. In this time, John has been on the phone the entire time trying to find out what has happened. By the time John gets off the plane, there is a long lineup of people wanting to talk to him like we did. Though the first people he talks to are not happy that they are being told they are bumped. Apparently no one in that line is. At this point, there are other staff behind him setting up, and it appears that John is taking it for his team and dealing with everyone here. Now remember, I explained to him everything that was told to us on the plane, so when people were getting angry and tell him it's not acceptable that they were not told, he was able to say yes, the captain made an announcement just after liftoff. Everyone on your plane was told. It was pretty bad, really. People were yelling at John. People were demanding to be upgraded to first class on both flights. People were demanding money for being bumped. None of them were leaving the boarding desk area. He had asked them to please sit down after he spoke to each of them, but they just moved to the side. We felt sorry for John, as you could see he was trying very hard to be professional and maintain his composure with all the abuse he was receiving. After 15 minutes of constant abuse, looks like he has had enough. His other staff, all younger, kept looking at him. They look a little concerned for him, but also thankful he is the one standing there in front of everyone. He turns and walks towards us. He asks to see our tickets, then goes back to his desk. A few minutes later, he motions us to come to the desk. You can see everyone who was complaining looking at us. Why are we being called up? We look at him too, wondering what is happening. I notice that he doesn't look as annoyed anymore. John is facing the crowd but started to talk to us, so everyone can hear what he was saying. We just had an opening in first class on the second flight. I was wondering if I could change your seat to first class. Oh, that would be awesome, thank you very much. At this point, he waves his hands and an airport golf cart shows up. He then proceeds to back it up through the middle of the angry people who've been rude and abusive to him. At this point, I can see the other staff notice what he is doing, and some crack a little smile. "Excuse me, this is the common waiting area. You must be tired from your fight earlier. Let's take this cart to your proper waiting area in the first-class lounge. I'll be sure to make sure the cart is there to take you back here when it's time to board." "Well, thank you very much." At this point, the other staff realize what he's doing, and they jump in too on this. They take our bags and help us onto the cart. One asks if we would like a glass of champagne waiting for us when we board. Of course we say yes. The look on everyone's faces when we are driven away to the first-class lounge while they are stuck there for another 2 hours. It was great, and you can see that John was enjoying watching their angry faces. After a lovely time in the first-class lounge, we are driven back to the boarding area. By this time, everyone who is working seems to know what is happening and is enjoying the reaction it is causing. The person driving the cart goes right for the group of angry, rude people again and makes them move out of the way. The other staff rush out to greet us with glasses of bubbly. They help us out of the cart and take our carry-on and jackets for us and escort us onto the plane, where the pilot greets us and says thanks for being understanding. Now it does not stop here. The first class is one where everyone has to walk through to get onto the plane, about 4 rows big. So it looks like they let that group of angry people board first. When this happened, the captain and other staff came and talked to us. There was no one welcoming them to the plane, just the cart driver telling them to move to the back fast and hurry up. What was even better was that there were 2 other people in first class on the far side. So when they walked in, they all saw my future wife and I talking to the captain, being served drinks in a basically empty first class on their way back to their seats. 7. A bit of background. I work in marketing and manage a number of client accounts for the business, and I'm in charge of a team of account managers. I'm a minority shareholder in the business, so of course, it's in my interest to ensure that the business operates efficiently and effectively. As one of the longest-serving employees when given my last promotion, as part of the package I was offered shares in the business. As I would be one of the most senior members of staff, it works out that I own about 5 to 7% of the business, can't recall the exact share division. As a shareholder, you'd expect that the managing director, let's call him MD, would understand that I genuinely want the best for the business, but instead does not take me seriously at all and frequently goes out of his way to undermine me. So last week I was supposed to come back on Wednesday following the Christmas break. Unfortunately, the week I was due to come back, I fell ill and lost my voice, as well as other issues that meant I couldn't make the journey into the office. I did the standard and messaged the MD as well as HR to inform them of what the situation was. We'd recently upgraded to a new project management system that needed a little bit of manual TLC in order to make it work automatically, if that makes sense. So I figured I'd take advantage of my illness and just vegetate in bed and work in this project management system. At about midday, I get a text off of the MD which read, "Hi, Ben is a boring name. As you know, I would like to bring Unhappy Camper Travel on as a client. As they'll be your future client, I'd like you to jump on a Skype call with them this afternoon." The subsequent paraphrased conversation. I couldn't possibly do that, as you know I have lost my voice and am currently in bed working on the project management system. "No, I need you to do this. It's very important." I have already advised you that this will not be possible. I don't need to work on this system today, as officially I am ill and have no requirement to work at all, as you're aware. So what you're asking is unacceptable. I don't care. You may be a director, but you're still an employee. I'm sure your dividends are likely to be affected if we were to lose one of our largest potential clients. Now finally, I know I'm sorry, it's time for the malicious compliance. Obviously, I don't want my dividends to be affected in the next quarter, no matter how much of an open-ended threat that was, so I call the procurement manager of this large travel organization. I don't turn my camera on and explain via text input what the situation was. We try our hardest to communicate. Them talking via the microphone and me communicating via the chat function. We mutually agree that this is going nowhere, and they agree that I shall call them back when I'm well. However, the next day, I'm still ill, and get a message off the MD saying that I need to go in the office for a priority 1 meeting. Essentially, what that means is even if you're on your deathbed, you're expected to dial in remotely or go into the office. As I walk in, the MD, the HR director, and the business management director are sat waiting for me. I immediately know this is regarding yesterday. There's no other reason for the HR director to have crawled out of his cave. I'm told to sit down, and the MD looks incredibly unhappy. He shows me an email thread from the procurement manager of the travel firm, essentially calling the MD unprofessional for making me go on the call, and saying they're having second thoughts about using our services. The HR director, who has obviously been led astray by the MD, asks how I can explain this and why I didn't raise this as an issue. I ask to link up the screen and show the HR director the text between the MD and myself from my phone. After a grilling, we all leave, putting it down as a learning experience. Fast forward 6 days. Yesterday I contacted the procurement manager of this travel firm, and he explained that he would love to become a client, but as long as all correspondence went through me rather than the dickhead MD. All's well that ends well, I guess. 8. Thanksgiving has always been one of my favorite holidays. And even though I moved away from home years ago, I still like to go all out and cook a big Thanksgiving dinner for my husband and our friends. For me, it has a lot of emotional ties to my late grandmother, as we always used to cook together when I was growing up. And now I use all of her old recipes. It makes me feel closer to her, and like I'm keeping an old family tradition alive. When a friend from my hometown, I'll call her Linda, moved to my current city, I invited her to join us for the holiday festivities, as she didn't know many people in the area, and we had plenty of extra food. Linda was grateful for the invite, came over. Everything went smoothly. The following couple of years, Linda continued to come over for Thanksgiving dinner, and all went well. I learned that as a Chinese American, Linda's family didn't actually celebrate Thanksgiving back home, but she told me how much she missed the Chinese food her mom made for her. Now, Linda doesn't know the difference between a spoon and a mixing bowl in the kitchen, and since she's not able to cook much more than a can of soup, she requested that I try making a few traditional Chinese dishes in addition to my grandma's classic Thanksgiving spread. As a white girl from the Midwest, I didn't know much about traditional Chinese cooking, but I consulted my local Asian market and several cookbooks, and did my best to accommodate her request. By Thanksgiving year 4, Linda had stopped waiting for an invitation to dinner and had started calling me over a month in advance, requesting that I essentially make an entire second menu of Chinese dishes. I explained to her that making a few extra dishes was fine, but making 10 to 12 extra that she wanted was a bit overboard. The menu already had me cooking for over 2 days straight, and all of the extra specialty ingredients from the Asian market added quite a bit of extra expense to my already expensive Thanksgiving budget. We compromised on 4 Chinese dishes, and she said she would give me a few extra bucks for the expense. She didn't. She also offered to help me in the kitchen on Thanksgiving Day, but that simply ended with her mixing eggshells into a pie, burning me with a pot of boiling water, and nearly cutting off her own finger before I banned her from the kitchen. Bring on Thanksgiving year 5. Once again, Linda calls me pre-invitation, letting me know how excited she is for Thanksgiving, since it's the only time of year she gets to eat real Chinese food. She also informs me that she would be bringing a friend, Rachel. Linda really wanted to include her because Rachel was new to town and was having trouble meeting people. They had bonded over being single in the city and not being able to find the right guy. Linda also informed me that they would be spending the night at my place after dinner, so they could drink as much as they wanted and not have to drive home late. Fine. I ask if Rachel has any dietary restrictions, and Linda tells me no. So I continue with my regular routine of purchasing all of the ingredients, doing as much pre-Thanksgiving Day prep as possible, and trying to get ready for the big day. The day before Thanksgiving, Linda gives me one last call. She forgot to mention it to me before, but Rachel is vegan.
But it's no big deal, right? She doesn't need anything fancy, just make a vegan version of all the dishes you normally do. Also, I need you to get a vegan roast from Daddy Warbucks Whole Foods, because she can't eat turkey. Also, If you could make a vegan version of the Chinese dishes, that would be great too. I want her to try my food, but make the regular versions too because I don't want to eat vegan. It doesn't taste the same. Oh, and one last thing. Rachel is a single mom, so she needs to bring her 2 kids with her. They're also vegan, and it's really important that they have a good Thanksgiving.
Now, I have nothing against vegans, but as I had already started my prep work, almost everything already had either butter, egg, cheese, or chicken stock in it. So this new info meant essentially cooking a 3rd Thanksgiving meal with less than 24 hours notice. This was my last straw. Okay, that's fine. But since this is so last minute, I'll need you to pick up the ingredients for the vegan food and bring them over early so we can have everything ready by dinner time. I'll send you a list, and you can probably get it all when you pick up the vegan roast from Daddy Warbucks Whole Foods. I'll also probably need you to recruit another chef to help me cook all this food, but we should be able to make it work. She agrees, and I proceed to send her a long vegan grocery list along with a few extra food items that I also needed. I then give my other friend Mark a call. Mark is a single, sweet, handsome guy. The only reason I hadn't invited him to Thanksgiving before was because I knew that Linda had a major crush on him. But he did not share the same feelings, and I didn't want to make the day awkward or uncomfortable for her. However, I knew Mark would be home, and as soon as I explained this year's cooking situation, Mark jumped to the rescue. Since Mark is also a vegan, he knew a ton of great vegan recipes, so he immediately offered to come over and help me cook. Also, based on some of the pictures of her that I saw on social media, it looked like Rachel was just his type, and Mark was more than ready for a relationship. Once Linda and Rachel arrived with the nearly $200 specialty groceries, they took one look at Mark and their jaws dropped. Linda's reaction was mostly out of shock, discomfort, disbelief, as she realized she was about to spend a full day with her longtime crush, while Rachel looked like the man of her dreams had just appeared in front of her and was cooking her dinner. Rachel and Mark hit it off instantly, and Rachel's kids quickly fell in love with him too. They spent the rest of the day cooking together, inseparable from one another, while Linda sat silently in a corner with a full plate of dim sum and a glass of quickly disappearing scotch. Later in the day, when Linda asked me to reimburse her for the vegan groceries that she had picked up, I pulled out several Asian market receipts from the past few years, and I asked her if I should just take her expense out of the total from what she owed me. She quietly retreated. And to top it all off, Rachel was Linda's ride home, and since they had already planned on sleeping over, Linda got to spend the rest of the night, plus the following morning, watching Rachel and Mark swoon over each other and plan future dates. Apparently, Rachel and Linda don't have that much in common anymore. I wonder if Linda will be inviting herself to Thanksgiving again next year. 9. This is happening right now. So I work in an embroidery shop. We're a little part of a bigger store that sells lots of different things, including clothing that we can personalize for business or individual needs. Because of this, sometimes people order clothing and a logo through a different salesperson than just the 3 of us in embroidery. That's cool, we have paperwork. But we don't keep track of the order unless something looks fishy. One business orders apparel through us. They pay for the item via money their customers spend with them. Think of it as store credit. They spend enough money at the place rewards them with vouchers for items and embroidery with the business logo. We give a discount on the items and embroidery because they order through us, so everyone gets a little bit win here. One of the customers wants an expensive jacket with a university logo on it. He asks our representative for it, but is told he must get the company logo on it, because that's the arrangement. I mean, that is literally the whole point of the arrangement. Company gets advertising, customer gets free stuff, we get business. Guy is not happy. Guy complains to the company manager, who also explains how this works. Guy orders the jacket with the company logo on December 27th. Then comes into the store and grabs the jacket already in stock. He knew it was here, that's how he decided to order it in the first place. He tells the new girl he wants this one instead of the one he just ordered because it is already here, and he's in a hurry to get it embroidered. It is already paid for, why can't he just have this one in stock? She, not understanding, lets him take the jacket. After all, his invoice lists the jacket and a logo, so it seems legit. It goes into the lineup for the embroidery with the logo he specifies at the time, not the company logo he's supposed to get. All of this goes unnoticed because of the different people involved. It takes about 2 weeks for items to be embroidered, depending on how quickly we can get through the order, especially during the holiday season. I embroidered the jacket yesterday and put it in the processing cabinet to be billed and sent out. In this case, it was just to be sent out, as the customer was supposedly already billed for the item. But, not being satisfied with getting the logo he wants for free, despite the rules against this, the guy calls us to complain that it was taking too long for his jacket. This was our first clue that something was amiss with the order. If he had waited, we would just have called him today and he could have had the jacket. But instead, he called and bitched us out for not having it done yet. Now we know what the jacket was for and how it was billed. We know it doesn't have the correct logo on it, and that he has not paid for the embroidery. Universities claim royalties on their logos, so they cost much more than the company logo. We just took the finished jacket he thought he was getting and put it out on the floor, replaced with the jacket he ordered that just came in. He will be getting the company logo on the jacket he ordered instead, and he can't complain because that is what he ordered online. He has no authority to change the embroidery logo. So next time he comes into the store, he will see the jacket he actually wanted but didn't get, available for anyone to purchase at full price. And it's all because he called to bitch us out for taking too long during the holiday season. Happy New Year, everyone. Update. So far he is insisting on getting the other logo, but won't pay the extra for the university royalties. We referred him to talk to the company to see if they will cover the cost of the university logo. He may be yelling himself out of a free $100 jacket over the cost of $20 embroidery, and could have had it all for free had he simply shut his mouth and waited one more day. Probably no further updates for today. We'll have to wait and see what happens with the other company. My guess is they will refuse, probably tell him he has to get their logo or they won't pay for the jacket. Ball's in their court now. He will get to either pay for the logo, pay for the jacket and the logo, or the jacket goes back onto the floor and will be bought by someone else. It's a popular item. No worries about it selling. The best part is, he probably won't learn a damn thing from this. This little lesson will most likely be repeated again at some point. Final update. He called, very sheepishly, and agreed to pay the embroidery. We didn't ask, but assumed the company threatened to make him pay for the jacket, and he backed down. We told him we might have it done by the end of the day. It is already bagged and waiting to be picked up, and he was very grateful. Maybe he did learn. 10. At my last job, it's quite common for people to sustain repetitive strain injury. I was one such person, and my doctor gave me pregabalin and a medical certificate for 2 weeks off work to recover. I told her I didn't need time off, but she gave it anyway. I go to work anyway and take my meds at home. Pregabalin made me really lightheaded and dizzy. I couldn't even walk in a straight line within an hour of taking it. I had a constant buzz in my head, otherwise I felt great. So I only took my meds at night, half the dose recommended by the doctor. A few days later I went to my fortnightly visit with the company doctor. He said it was a good idea that I take 2 weeks off, and he's the guy who insists you should return to work ASAP. So I thought if the company doctor wants me to take 2 weeks leave, I better do it. 2 doctors have given me the same advice. It'll be stupid not to follow it. After my visit to the doctor, I gave my team leader, TL, my medical certificate, and he was not happy. He refused to discuss further with me until I clock off in 2 hours' time. When I spoke to him, he said he can't give me 2 weeks medical leave. Why not? I have 2 medical certificates, one from the company doctor. If anyone else gave you one, you would have to respect the doctor's wishes, so why is this any different?
Yours is a work-related injury and we are responsible for you.
So if you're responsible, then if my injury gets worse, you'll be responsible for that too.
No, that won't happen. Our occupational health nurse does not agree with the doctors and believes you can't achieve anything healing in 2 weeks that you haven't already achieved in 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months of working and no improvement, so I want to try a new approach. I have a medical certificate and I am taking time off.
Well, you're an employee here, so you kinda have to come to work if we tell you.
He then proceeds to spew bullshit about how he doesn't want me to be sad and lonely at home, and that I need the support of my colleagues in my most vulnerable moments. And stuff about how he doesn't want other employees to think it's okay to take medical leave, to which I thought WTF. I tell him I need to take my meds, and I told him the side effects which would make me unable to work. He countered it by saying I could just sit in the office. What's wrong with me sitting at home? Oh yeah, I'll be sad all day. So I lost. Or so I thought. The next day I decided to take my full dose of pregabalin. I took one the night before and saved my morning dose for when I arrived at work. I had to wait until I arrived before I could take it, otherwise I wouldn't be able to drive. When I arrived, I saw another TL. He asked me how I was doing, and I told him about the pregabalin, and I made sure he watched me take it. Fast forward an hour and a half. I'm chatting with customer services and stand up to leave for my physio appointment. I almost collapse. I was so lightheaded and dizzy. My co-workers are saying it's not right, and I should be at home. I tell them what happened, and they all shake their head. I stumble down the corridor to the bathroom and crash into the filing cabinets, right outside my boss's office. She immediately comes to escort me to the bathroom, then to a taxi to physio. When I get back, she helps me to see my TL.
I think you should go home. It's not safe for anyone for you to be here. Why, I feel great. You told me to come to work, and so I did. But we didn't know this would happen. Yes, you did. I told you yesterday. But we've never seen it happen at work before. I'm confused now. You said I need to be at work for support. I need the help the most now. And you're trying to send me home.
Where's my support? The TL tries to argue with me, but I refuse to budge. Every argument he tried, I countered with the exact same thing he said to me yesterday. I refused to go home and bumped around at work for my full 8 hours. Afterwards, he said he has spoken to the nurse again, and they have agreed to grant me the leave which the doctors have ordered. By then, 1 week had already been wasted, but I still got 1 week off.
Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to the Revenge is Ice Cream Archives, Episode 8. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories. Exciting times in the land of Hellfreezer. I won my first eBay auction this week, which was a bit of a surprise. The thing is allegedly on its way to me, so fingers crossed. It is coming through Royal Mail, so basically it's not going to be delivered to me. What will happen is I'll get a card through the door, and I'll then go pick it up later in the week. So I'm prepared for that. I'm expecting that. That's usually the way these things go when they're handling packages for me. But it does mean I have a second and actually newer audio interface to work with. So the new one, once it's tested out, will become part of my work rig, and the old one will become part of my streaming rig in the living room. So instead of using a little mod mic, which I actually only got for VR originally, good mic, but it's not quite for the use scenario that I need it for, I'll have a proper mic, because I have my old microphone, which I upgraded a little while back. Still in good condition, still works perfectly fine. I just wanted something a little better. So I'm very happy about that. I'm not going to yammer on too much more. I mean, I could go on for days. But I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.